In this data structures video, I'll be talking about vectors. A vector is a data structure that allows you to store multiple pieces of data. The data must be of the same type. So you can store numbers, you can store strings, you can store an enumeration or structure that you make in your program. They're used for lists of information. So if you have, for example, a grocery list, you can store a list of all your groceries within a vector. Vectors allow data to be added and removed, and you can also easily traverse the entries of a vector to work with the data. Here's an example. We are creating a vector called myNumbers by utilizing the vec macro. When you use the vec macro, you surround the items you wish to add into the vector with square braces, followed by the data you wish to add to the vector. Remember that the data must all be of the same type, so here we have all numbers. Alternatively, you can create a mutable variable, name it whatever you wish, and then use vec new. So you use the new function that's implemented onto the vec struct with the double colons to determine the function that we're calling, which is new. You can then call the variable name dot push to add a new item to the vector. So you're pushing additional data onto the vector. Here we push 1, 2, and 3 to create the same vector as the vec macro created initially. We can also call the pop method on the vector. The pop method just removes the last item we added. So in this case, pop will remove this 3 from the vector. The len function is short for length, and it will return the number of items within the vector. So we have 1, 2, 3 items. We remove the last item with the pop function. So the len will return 2 because there's only 2 items remaining after we remove the third from the pop function. We can also access an item from the vector using slice notation. So when we have these square braces around an index number, we're slicing into the vector. Vector indexes start at 0, so this is index 0, index 1, and index 2. When we have myNumbers and we slice to index 1, we will get the number 2 since this is at index 1. If you recall, macros in Rust expand to actual Rust code. So this vec macro will expand to something similar to this. So if you just want to make a vector with some values in it or any type of data, you can just use the vec macro. If you like, you can manually type out everything needed to create the vector, but the vec macro is usually more convenient if you just want to create a vector with some information. Let's take a look at an example of iterating through the elements of a vector. So here we're creating a new vector called myNumbers. It has 3 elements, so each one of these is called an element. We have the 1, 2, and 3 for our elements. You can also refer to them as items. Next, we have a for-in construct. So a for-in is essentially a loop that is specific for collections. This can be read as for some variable in the collection myNumbers. We want to perform some action that's in between these curly braces. So the block of code in here will get executed on every single element in the vector. The for and in keywords are required in order to perform this action. So this whole thing can be read as for each number inside myNumbers collection, we want to do a print line with the number. And so on the first iteration, number will refer to 1, and then 2, and then finally 3. So print line will be called 3 times to print out each number. To recap, vectors contain multiple pieces of similar data. Data can be added or removed from vectors easily. The vec macro can be used to easily make vectors in your code. Use for in to iterate through items in a vector.